Tough question. Not emotional, purely economic. You're a wealthy man. The two of you lead an affluent life. You can afford the therapists and to fly to Paris for the conference. In many ways, you are among the minority. Today, we're recording this at the end of, I think we're in May of 2011. Not a great time in terms of worldwide economics. What do parents of children with more severe conditions of RETT, who do not have the financial resources that you have, who do not have the medical insurance or the subsidies or etc., what do?
It's very difficult. And geography plays a large part in it. As you know, all the states are going through their own financial issues along with the federal government.
Yes.
Some states are doing better than others. Some areas and states are doing better than others. So it really depends on where parents, or where the children live and parents live. In our case, or in the state of California, there are systems whereby the school districts and the regional centers within the state provide a large measure of support as part of both the Federal American Disabilities Act, but in California we have something called the Lanterman Act, which there's funding for disabled persons and children to provide during their period of their life for educational purposes until typically up to age 21, 18 to 21, and then in some cases 25. They provide a variety of services. Because of the budget cuts that are happening, those services continue to get reduced. We utilize as much of the publicly available services because a lot of these people are very well trained, as much as we can. But even that level of support is not really enough for the amount of intervention needed for a child that has Rett syndrome.
That's my question.
Because the states all work within constructs of diagnosis, most of which are geared toward autism and what the label of autism has, and they're very specific in what they will and will not provide. And even for ourselves, it can be somewhat of a fight with some of the different governmental agencies because they're essentially fighting over dollars, and there's just not enough to go around for the amount of children in the system. So we supplement art significantly with what we do because, as you mentioned, we can, but we feel that we have to do it to maintain Hannah's skills and her level of activity and continue to enhance it. She's continuing to grow and learn as she gets older and enhance that. And also because we believe that through everyone's collective efforts, there will be a cure at some point. So we don't want to not do anything and leave gaps. We want to do all that we can and know we've exhausted every possibility.
A couple of more questions and then Linda and Jason. It has been hypothesized and argued that over the course of our lifetimes, we have spent tens of billions of dollars on research to find a cure for cancer and the common cold, and we haven't been able to do either. Obviously, to do nothing by way of financial contribution in terms of scientific research to cure Rett syndrome is not an option, obviously. Can we predict that if the scientists had enough financial resources and that this gene has been isolated in laboratory experiments, that the chance of a cure, or whatever word you want to use, is a reality in our lifetime, in the next 10 years, in the next 5 years, 6 months from now. Scientist pours something into a test tube, looks under a microscope, and boom, this is history. Is that too Pollyanna thinking, or speak, both of you speak to that?
It's absolutely possible. Absolutely. You know, they thought it would be impossible to reverse the symptoms of Rett syndrome, but they were able to do that. If you look at some of the research that's going on, they've already, well, I shouldn't speak to too much of it, but yes, it's definitely possible, and within our lifetime, and much, much sooner, I hope. Much sooner.
Yeah.
Realistically, how long?
You know, I look at it based upon the amount of money, I said this earlier, you know, I've identified a gene, figured out what the gene did, gene reversal, animals that represent 100% of the symptoms with less than $20 million over 15 years of kind of really organized research. Drop in the bucket, drop in the ocean. So when I think about that, of all the great foundation that you have, I don't see any reason within the next 10 years to go from bench experiments on mice to human beings to trials and other things.
We can't guarantee it, but...
Yeah, I feel very good with enough money. And what is enough money? Enough money is probably going to be hundreds of millions. I don't know if it's billions, but to me, with less than 20 million to make that much progress, to then make the gap.
We had 20 million a year would be nice.
Yeah,
20 million bucks a year would put a dent in this, a serious scientific dent to put an end to this within a decade.
Rett syndrome is right now, it's positioned to be the first neurological disease to be cured in history.
Genetically.
Repeat that, please.
Rett syndrome is right now positioned to be the first neurological disease to be cured in history.
So
as of tonight, how much money does the U.S. government provide for research in the area of Rett syndrome?
I think it's approximately, and Monica can clarify, I believe it's $5 million a year, and that's only happened in the last few years. But 50% of that amount goes to administrative overhead at mostly funded to university labs, where the universities peel 50% off for administrative costs. So it's about then $2.5 million per year going actually to the scientists.
$2.5 million bucks a year.
And to put that in context, and nothing against this disease, but Parkinson's as a disease, since the Michael J. Fox Foundation has got involved and garnered the notoriety and the publicity of celebrity, cause celeb around this with Congress, the funding in NIH, I don't know what it was a few years ago, but I believe it was much, much smaller, is now running, I believe, at about $90 million a year generated. With no, I mean, they're working hard on many different aspects, and it's a disease that affects many more people. And interestingly, girls with Rett syndrome that live older in the 20s and 30s wind up with a dual diagnosis of Parkinson's. So we know now, we believe, our scientists believe, the MECP2 gene is somehow implicated in Parkinson's as well.
I see.
So we know that there are different areas of research that could benefit many different diseases.